Hello. Allow me to show you today how you can add real-time annotations to your line charts with newly released native Writeback in Power BI. Let me show you a demo first. So here I have a line chart. You already see I have some annotations, and let me add new one. I'm selecting time point. I'm typing text, new one. And I'm pressing Add New. And as you can see, in just a few seconds, new annotation added and visible on the line chart. It can be really useful for sales team, for C-level teams, to go through the data and not just consume it, but also annotate it to figure out what's driven that growth or decline. And now let me show you how to set it up from scratch. First, we'll set up a new table where we'll be storing these annotations. Second, we'll go through setting up new user data functions. And as the last step, we will review how to set up line chart in a way that will show your annotations on top of the data. Let's go. Hello. My name is Maxim and I specialize in Power BI, data analytics, and Microsoft Fabric. And now back to the video. Here on screen you can see my schema and specifically sales annotations table that I've added. Here I have annotation ID, which is automatically incremented. Then annotations date, it will store the date that we would like to annotate. Note, one which is added manually. It will also track who created it, when they created it, and whether it was modified and modified by whom. And the last column I will skip for now. I will have a separate video about that. Now let me show you how I created the table. I'll walk you through the SQL that I used for this. So here I have create table statement in my sales LT schema, sales annotations table, and I'm adding those fields that we discussed already. Annotations, which is integer or numbers, which will be annotated uniquely. And when you delete annotations, it will still continue the counter. As you can see here, I've deleted few, but still it does not use numbers that we used previously. Annotations date, simple date, note, text, created by, created at, created by will be passing from Power BI. Created at will be populated automatically by system data, as you can see here. Modified by and modified at we will be passing either from Power BI or through our user data functions. And the last one, as I mentioned already, I'll skip for now. I'll have separate video. This is an important one, but I want to focus on the basics right now. Then I'm creating index. This is just for performance. If you have many annotations, that will help a bit to match your annotations with your source data. You don't have to do it, but it's good for scaling in the future. Now let's switch to user data functions. If you haven't seen my previous video, I suggest to watch it. It will show you how to set up the basics. In this video, I will focus strictly on two new user data functions, to update annotation and to delete annotation. How to add records I was reviewing in the previous video, so I suggest you watch it. So let's go to update one. Here, the first thing that I do, I'm specifying what will be passed into this user data function. Its annotation ID will be passed from Power BI. Note or text will be passed from Power BI as well. This, again, we'll skip for now. And username will be passed from Power BI as well. I will show you how to set it up. Since it's a production implementation, we also want to add some error handling. This is important. When you test stuff, it's one thing. When you go into production, you want to be sure you're handling errors properly. So here I'm checking whether user has passed annotation ID and whether it's correct. Specifically, that it's positive. Just simple check. Since we had the limit for our note column as 500 characters, I'm also checking that here, that the text that is being passed from Power BI has less than 500 characters. I'm checking the minimum, that it has something, at least one character, and then that is below 500. And if it doesn't, throw an error, which will be passed back to Power BI and shown to user, which is also great from user experience standpoint. However, if everything's correct, I'm passing note through. Then I have here check user function. So I am checking user name, which was passed. So let's take a look what this function is. It's at the top of my document. Here is the function, which is defined here. And as you can see here, you can pass string here. And similarly to the previous example that we discussed, it validates that username fits within the character limit. And if it does fit within character limit and it's not empty, then it proceeds further. As you can see here. You can actually define functions for all your error handling. So you can either define them inline, or if you're planning to reuse this code, it's better to define it as function and then just use this function within your user data function. Okay, establishing connection, this is the standard thing. And the most important part is where we actually do the update. This is our SQL statement. Update, we're updating sales annotations table. We're setting note, and question marks tells it that something will be passed here. Modified, same, question mark. Here we're telling it to use system, time. And the reason why we're doing it here and not on the database level is that when record is being created, we don't want modified to be populated. We only want it to happen when update actually triggered. That's why it mentioned here. And in where statement, we're matching using annotation ID, obviously. And again, I will skip the last part and make a separate video about that. And we're telling it which variables to pass here. So note, user PN, annotation ID, and the last one. And getting, as a result, row count, how many rows were updated. In our case, usually just one. This is needed, again, for error handling. Here, if it returns 0, that 0 rows were updated, it means something hasn't matched, whether annotation ID or something else. In that case, again, we want to return error to user to let them know what happened or that something happened instead of them just blindly staring into the screen thinking why my annotation doesn't appear. So here I'm returning error. Okay, that annotation was changed or deleted by someone else, no longer exists, and that's why they weren't able to update it. The rest is standard. And we finish with return statement annotation updated. If it was updated, otherwise we finish with some error. We're finished with updates. Let's move on to delete user data function. And here, for the most part, everything matches. So let's focus on just delete statement. And delete statement says, again, delete from sales annotations, matching using annotation ID, and we're passing annotation ID here. And that's how you set it up your user data functions. Now let's set it up in Power BI. Here it's actually more involved. So first, let's do the easier part, walking you through how to connect your slicers and buttons to user data functions. And then we'll do the visual stuff, how to set up line chart in a way to show annotations. So let me walk you through. So here I'm having slicer. It's a simple text slicer, but we need to connect it to our buttons or to our actions. So let's focus on update, and let's go to action. And here you can see that I already have it set up. My workspace, Annotations UDF, I have 3 UDFs there. Add, update, delete. So since it's a button for update, I'm selecting update here. And it will tell me what I need to pass. And I need to pass user, annotation ID, and note. With note, it's easy. You are assigning it to that text slicer that we just saw. With user, you need to get username who is currently viewing the report and working with the report. So for this, you will need to make a measure. And I have it here, current user, and it's a simple user principal name. Once you have this measure, let's go back to actions. You just need to specify it here and assign it to this variable. With annotation ID, it's better if you make measure as well. It's just simple selected value function which gets our annotation ID. The good part here is that selected value only returns one value. Otherwise, it does not return anything, or it will return blank result if there are multiple values selected, which is good for our error handling there. We only want to pass one value. Setup for delete, as you can see here, I'm switching to delete, is pretty much the same. And now to the most involved part, because this involves quite a lot of hacking. The usual when you want to go beyond standard functionality with Power BI core visuals. I think it would be best if I start from scratch and set it up on the new page, and walk you through the whole process. Let me do that. Let me add line chart. It's the first step. As the x-axis, I'm using order date. So let's do that. As the y-axis, I'm using order quantity, QTI. Okay. It will take some work to make it look good, so bear with me. I will use visual calculations. So let's add custom one. And for this one, we will just use sum of QTI. Reason being, we need the same lines on top, which we will be using to customize annotations. So this is just a copy of the values that we have already. And we'll name it annotations. As you can see here, just the same values. Besides that, we also need to add some space on top of line chart to make sure that our annotations fit within the chart space. So for this, we'll need to make another visual calculation. And let's name it extend y-axis. Let's use our iterator max to find maximum value out of everything that we have here. And we're going through rows and we're looking for maximum value in order QTI. Okay. Let's see what it gives us. It gives us 286. But we want to add some space on top. The simplest thing is just multiply it. So now we have some space on top of it. And let's start customizing our line chart to display annotations. So first, what you will want to do is let's disable this line which extends y-axis. So let's select extend y-axis and let's unclick it for show for this series. We also likely want to remove legend. Okay, and let's remove all the things that we currently don't need here. So values, title, let's make it minimal. Okay. Now let's go to data labels and enable them. And here, as you can see here, now it's quite messy. So let's start disable things we don't need. Let's disable sum of order QTI. Let's disable one for extend y-axis as well. We don't need them. And now let's go to our annotations and let's set it up to show annotations. So here you will want to enable detail. And you will want to select our note field. Let's select it. Great. And let's set up display units to none. Oh, I forgot to enable it. Now they show up already. Good. Let's set up above to make sure that they're always above the point. Let's disable value because we don't want to see value here. Or maybe you do, but in this case, we are working with annotations. And what we want to do else is we want to add some background. We also want to put them higher so they look like annotations. And you can do that through minimum offset. So let's specify here maybe 50 or 100, depending on how do you want them to be. So I will specify 100 and maybe let me add maximum 100 as well. Just to be sure they don't go off screen. Okay, we're already close. And let's enable leader lines. And if you look at our chart, it already looks quite similar to what I had there. Just few customizations remain. For lines, let's set up interpolation to smooth. Okay, let's enable shade area to remain here. So let's disable the ones that we don't need. And we don't need annotations. We don't need extend y-axis. Okay. Okay. Oh, I just needed to disable annotations because it was overlapping with the original values. I guess the last thing that we want to add are markers on top of it, like I have here. Now to do that, you will need to add extra measure. You cannot do it with visual calculations. So let's add that measure. It's called annotation marker. And here I'm selecting order date. I'm checking whether there is annotation or not, because I only want to display marker for points where we have annotation. And if there is annotation, I'm returning order QTI, sum of order QTI, otherwise I'm returning blank. So this dot will only show up here, 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 and here, where we have annotations. Let's add it to the line chart. Okay, you can see here, it does show up where we need it to. Let's disable the line. Let's disable shade as well. We want to disable likely, up to you. We want to disable values. And now we want to add markers. So let's go to markers section and let's find annotation marker and let's enable it here. Okay, now we just need to customize them. Easy. So here, let's leave it 5. Let's enable border. Let's make it 10. Let's make it, let's say, more transparent. And let's change color for main marker to something similar. And here you are. I just walk you through the whole pipeline. How to set up your database, to store annotations, how to set up your user data functions, to process what users submit from Power BI, how to connect slicers, buttons with user data functions, and then how to set up your line chart to display those annotations in an appealing way. Let me know what you think. Subscribe and see you in the next one.